heads or tails? It's apparently one of the very oldest games known to humanity, heads and tails. I think it dates back to the very earliest times when the first coins were minted. It's a very obvious thing to do. You have what should be perfectly balanced object that if you flip, you're going to get one or two sides. And it's normally used, as we well know, as a game of chance. And I understand in Roman times it was understood that there was an element of divine will. If you wanted to know what the gods wanted, you could leave it up to the gods by saying, if this, then we go that way. If this, then we go that way. And you understand the principle, heads and tails. But I want to use the coin and the heads and tails concept to explain something different. I want to use it to explain the concept of perspective in a new way. I mean, one coin, if I look at it from over here, it looks like it has a head on it. And if I look at it from that side, it's got a number. We call it the tails side. But it's the same coin. It's just a matter of perspective. And for each of us, for every single one of us in this life, there are these perspectives. And it really depends on how you're looking at it. You'll see either one side or the other. And a perspective I want to talk about today is our own personae. You know, we're so prone to thinking that our personalities just are. Like, this is just how I am. I just am this way. We don't understand that our personalities are composed of many, many, many counterbalancing traits and attributes. And that those traits and attributes are not simply random. They're, for most of us, the result of very careful design. You know, prior to this incarnation, prior to coming here, you are in the spirit space. Some might say you're in heaven, you know, before you come down to earth. You are with your spirit guides. And you start to plan your incarnation. And you say, in this incarnation, I'm going to need the following strengths. I'm going to need to be able to do... You think they would do this sort of thing just for the camera if I wasn't trying to tell you a story? They won't. If you try and get the camera and just make them play, they look at you like you're nuts. But try and tell a story, and they put on all the cutes. So, what I was trying to say, it's prior to this incarnation, you will find yourself with your spirit guide, with a variety of guides, and you will be planning your life. And you will say, in order for that life to be successful, I need certain strengths. But those strengths come at the cost of counterbalancing weaknesses, difficulties. And today, I want to, it's kind of like a bit of a story time with Zingdad again, but today I want to tell you a little bit about my own story of the flip side of the coin, of strengths being counterbalanced by weaknesses, and how this was actually accomplished in my life. And this whole story that I want to tell is actually catalyzed by the last newsletter that I sent out. Just as the newsletter had gone out, I was looking again at what I just sent because I wanted to see if I said something I wanted to say. And I noticed a spelling error, not the kind of spelling error that spell check picks up. It had converted in my typing because I'm terrible. I have a kind of a dyslexia. If I just type, what appears on the page will be a garbled mess to you. And it's thanks to spell check that I can get most of the words right. And then I usually need somebody else, a non-dyslexic person, to read afterwards and make sure it's right. Because if I don't, I get spelling errors creep in, as happened in my last newsletter, where spell check doesn't see the word as an error. So how do I have this kind of dyslexia? And it's a bit of a long story, and I'm going to try and tell it to you without getting too bogged down in the details. The story starts When I was, I think, just about 3 or 4 years old, um, there was an accident, and I landed very, very hard on the back of my head. My head came down, slammed into the ground, very hard. Um, it's probably one of my earliest memories because I can even remember the smell of the impact. It smelled like iron in my nose. There was no blood, but I smelled this. And I can remember being very nauseous, throwing up and throwing up and throwing up. And I can remember being confused and just. So clearly I was very badly concussed. And that was that. I got better and life went on. What nobody at that stage knew, certainly not the little boy, was that there was a small modicum of damage was done to my brain. The consequence of that small modicum of damage was that I would struggle with certain things my whole life. The effect that is still manifest now is this mild dyslexia. When I was a boy, when I was at school, it was a far more serious effect. I had a kind of a learning disability. I really, really found it impossible to learn the way other children found so easy. I found it impossible to memorize facts, to memorize dates, link a name with an event and a date. This was beyond what I was capable of. Now, without blowing my own horn, I'm a smart guy. I have great deductive reasoning, and I can really understand things very well. So when it came to understanding, I was great. But at school, they don't seem to be capable of testing understanding. They test learning. Even things that should be very understanding based, like mathematics, is often tested memory. So I didn't do incredibly well at school. And I thought that there was just something wrong with me. I didn't put two and two together. I didn't understand that it was the result of this brain lesion. So in terms of the coin, there was only a whole lot of downside. I only had one side of the coin as a child. A certain learning disability, a handwriting that looked like a crab was scratching itself across the page. Even if I understood the spelling of the word, it would still come out wrong. I had all kinds of difficulty at school. So I didn't do very well at school. Lots of downside, no upside. Poor little boy. Very sad story. But there is an upside. There is a flip side. That same, I suppose, lesion in my brain also created a kind of a break, a kind of an opening, an energetic opening, a doorway that even as a little boy, I didn't realize I had, and I didn't realize I was using, but I was. Even as a little boy, I would have conversations inside my mind with future self. Sometimes when I felt very lonely and I was looking for some inspiration or some guidance, I would just have this thought, well, what if I could speak to, like, when I'm grown up and I've got it all sorted, what if I could speak to that guy and he could give me advice? And I'd pretend I did. And I didn't realize I wasn't just pretending. I didn't realize that my future self was actually talking to this younger self. As an adult, I've had the experiences of being on the other side of that telephone, of talking to that boy and remembering those conversations, and that happened. Now, I found that very easy to do. So easy that I thought it's just a natural thing and I'm just imagining it. It's just easy. Because this access was open to me, the flip side of the coin. It became very easy for me as an adult to parent my younger self, to bridge across time and speak to my younger self. And if you think about it, the whole Zingdad experience, the whole experience of this person who I've always been uncomfortable with saying what I do is channeling. And one of the reasons I'm uncomfortable is because I don't go into a trance and surrender my body and somebody else comes through. I'm completely present. When you see me channeling Adamu, I am completely present. I am doing my best to translate Adamu for you. I'm doing my very best to show you his thoughts by speaking them in the English language and show you his energy. And the reason I'm able to do this as easily as I do is because of this break in my brain. So I'm told. So now I'm starting to see the bright side of the coin. I'm starting to see the happy upside. I can do these things that anybody can do, but I can do them more easily. I have a gift that goes with the burden. Two sides of the coin. And as I become aware of this, I start to realize that pretty much all of life is like that. You have something that happens in your life and you think that's a terrible thing. It's a bad thing that's happened. It always has another side to the coin. The old saying, every cloud has a silver lining. I don't really like that saying because a big dark cloud with a little silver lining doesn't seem quite fair. I really think everything balances. It must, in the end. Everything must balance. And if you're experiencing the dark side or the heavy side or the difficult side or the painful side, there is an other side to it. There is a flip side. Now, for me, if I look at it, I'll say, okay, that poor kid really had to suffer with just passed things. He just had squeaked through passing grades on everything and therefore didn't get the approval, the affirmation that other kids were getting from doing well. And he should have been able to do well because he was bright, that kid. But there's another bright side to that. If I had done well at school, I really wanted to be, I suppose you can guess, I really wanted to be a veterinarian. I wanted to go to vet school and be an animal doctor. And if I couldn't be that, I wanted to be a human doctor. And if I couldn't be that, I actually went to university. To those of you who don't know the expression varsity, I went to university and started to study psychology and realized that it's not for me, and realized it was also just a whole lot more learning theories and ideas, and it wasn't for me. If I had followed these courses, if I had stayed the path, if I'd been a straight A student, straight A students get a certain kind of attention. They get streamed into things and they get told, you're a bright kid, you've got to do this thing, you've got to do that thing, there would have been all kinds of expectations upon me. I would not have found myself on the Zingdad path. It would have taken me on a different route. And my soul wanted me to be here doing this. My soul wanted me to play the Zingdad game. And it would have been very, very hard. I would have still been dealing with the after effects of being a high achiever sort of a person. My ego would have become attached to my identity as a vet, as a doctor, as a accomplished person. Instead, for years and years and years, I struggled within myself to find inside of myself what it was that was authentic to me. And eventually, the only thing that really opened up for me was spirituality. So I became what I am today. I crafted this persona out of many flip sides to many coins, but the one I wanted to tell you about today was one that started with a boy with a bang on his head, a terrible bang on his head, resulting in a brain lesion, resulting in a learning disability. That was the flip side of the coin, for which I am very, very grateful. A coin that resulted in an outcome that I look back and I say, that was deeply desirable. There are other such stories I can tell, such as the story of my deep depression, which is a flip side of not loving yourself, of not loving life, of rejecting life, which taught me how I have to really engage the journey of love and loving life. And there are so many such flip sides that I can tell you, but rather than tell you all of my stories of all of the flip sides of all of the coins, I would rather really inspire you to tell your story. Tell yourself your story and look and see where are the things that you've been telling yourself are just burdensome, difficult, problematic, those deep secret pains that you're carrying, or the more obvious difficulties, the more obvious perhaps handicaps in your journey, in your life. And go and have a look and see if you can't figure out what is the flip side. Once you start to do that, you start to understand yourself and life in a different way. It's a lot more easy to be grateful to life for even the things that you think are the impossible mess-ups, the tragic bad things that have gone on in your life, that the difficult parts of your personality, of your mind, of your emotions, of your journey. And if you can't find the flip side, it might be that you're just not at that part of your journey yet. It might be that you are at the place in your journey where you've only yet seen the one side. It might be that there's a future incarnation or just a future part of your own journey where the other side becomes really apparent. But really, that's what I wanted to talk about today. Just a little inspiration to find a new perspective, to think of your life a little bit differently. And obviously to show you my dogs being cute. That's obviously also what I wanted to do today. So until next time, I love you all with the heart of oneness. Goodbye.